and welcome back to Massalia Tales. In the previous episode we saw Cretheus pushing south to relieve the siege of Seleucia where the Parthenians were making an attack. He teamed up with his new ally Epaphroditos to double team the Parthenians, staging a major rear attack that meant their forces broke relatively easily, especially when Cretheus applied his cavalry advantage. Our allies Bosphorans asked for us to go to war against the nomad Sakaroka, and we agreed, being that would help them take all of their territory. In Iberia, the Gallaeci attacked Iberia, coming for a siege attack against a superior force, but we were unable to hold them off the walls. They had loads of siege equipment, and they were able to storm our positions. Many troops were lost, but in a long, slogging engagement over the walls themselves, our forces eventually won, with support from archers and use of troops to draw enemies away from the wall and outside the city to keep pressure off. Finally, we saw Cretheus heading north once again, hoping to take the northernmost province of Mesopotamia and put the resistance of the Parthenians to an end. Now let's continue. With the foreign wars finding success, particularly those conducted by Cretheus, the rest of the Timucoi were busy sizing up other targets. Despite being involved in many wars already, the majority of the Republic's strength was not deployed, being used only to patrol borders that had long since ceased to be hostile. But with no cause for conflict, all that could be schemed was a war for war's sake, something that was hard to sell to those people who did not buy into the notion that the Republic had a right to conquest. Among these people was Eusebius, supported by the Massalian Council, which by now had more members from client states than from the city itself. To begin this episode, I'm going to do a review of all the forces and commanders the Massalian Republic has at its disposal. We're going to start with the Daemons of Polemus, the most famous army, led currently by Artemios. Artemios is the least important of the council commanders right now, very young. He's merciful and tends to like pretty much every culture. His only problem is that he has a mean wife, which actually reduces his upkeep, I seem to remember handily. Supporting him is Evios with the deliverance of Zenon. A damaged but powerful navy, Evios is also a council commander, an experienced marine, overall a superb admiral, not up to the standards of our legendary Admiral Homer, but someone who can definitely win a naval engagement. Now jumping down to Mesopotamia, we've got two more commanders, the first of which of course is Cretheus leading the hands of the Timucoi, a powerful but not particularly experienced force. He is the head of the Timucoi, our faction leader. He is simultaneously interested in peace and spilling blood, so he's got a strange mixed message going on in his personality. Supporting him is a new general, Epaphroditos. This is also a Timucoi commander. He is confident, but is suffering from being a product of incest, it seems, but has a wealthy wife, allowing him to climb up the ranks, which he's going to do right now, because I secured for him a promotion. So now we're going to jump over to the other side of the world. I don't have any commanders in Africa right now, not that we need any, with my allies guarding all of my territory. We've got Eurythenes here in Iberia, currently heading west to attack the Gallaeci. He is a Timucoi commander. He's from a poor background and has risen to become a general basically on skill. He's a superb commander with tons of traits that increase his abilities in battle. So he's basically a rising star based on merit, and he's going to get a promotion as well right there. He is going to have to press west now against the Gallaeci. We want to take back our territory here on the coast and then preferably move north to actually just subdue the Gallaeci and take their territory for our own, so this doesn't happen again. We've also here got Eutychus. He's commanding the Heralds of Massalia, the army that famously led the late Gelon to fame. He is nothing too special. He's more of a politician than a general. He's not particularly suited to leading an army based on his traits, but he doesn't really have to face combat and has only been doing patrols for his entire career, so that's never really been a problem. In Massalia, docked at our great ports, is Homer, the legendary admiral who helped lead the attack on Athens. Homer is pretty old at this stage. He's unlikely to see much more action, but he is a superb leader of ships and is also famously an atheist, spreading his atheist ways wherever he goes. Luckily, he spends almost all of his time at sea, so he's not going to cause any problems. Heading east, we've got an army which I don't think we've ever seen in this series, which is the Shield Bearers, led by a man called Artemios. This is an army which is pretty advanced, a mix of heavy phalanx and heavy infantry, heavy sword infantry. This was positioned here to guard against invasions from the east that never actually occurred. Here's the commander, Artemios, a solid sort of commander type, never had to be tested in battle and doesn't have much experience, but if he's ever needed to, I think he will perform fine. That army is pretty much just going to stay there as a tactical reserve. Also guarding a border to no particular benefit is the Claws of the Peak, the army of Gelon, now led by Bendis, Gelon's protege. Bendis is a little bit of a sneaky individual who's focused on gaining power and as a general specialises in going on the attack. So he's a solid attacking commander who will be very useful if a war breaks out in the region, but so far it's been peaceful for many decades. Over in Britannia, we've got two more commanders, first of which Heraclides, leading the very advanced army, the Eyes of Ares. He, opposite to Bendis, is a very defensive commander, focusing on uniting peoples. He doesn't necessarily want to be at war, he just wants to solidify the Republic and keep things stable. He's got defensive focus and generally likes most cultures, with a handy British turncoat he has among his ranks to help him in case he needs to go to war against the British. Supporting him is this giant, pointless navy of tiny ships, which was just used as an escort. It's probably going to be disbanded relatively soon. It's led by a minor council commander. This is actually a replacement for its real commander, who is Cleandros, a Timukoi commander. So this is just some young guy who's filling in, because I think Cleandros was wounded in an assassination attempt recently. So with all that done, it's time to actually make some moves for this turn, and you can see here the Carthaginians have taken the territory that the Gallaeci had taken back off them. So that basically means I can't sneakily steal that territory from Carthage. I'm going to sit on the border just in case Gallaeci makes a counter-attack and takes that province back, but I think it's very unlikely. Eurythenes has got a small Gallaeci army standing in front of him, nothing he can't take out. He moves in to engage. They stand and fight, which actually draws out the garrison of the town. Balance bars pretty far in our favour, probably just about far enough that we can get a reasonable auto-resolve. The losses were still quite high, only a close victory available in auto-resolve despite our advantage, but I didn't feel like fighting this battle would be particularly interesting, and I didn't think Eurythenes was likely to face another battle after this, so losses are tolerable. So he loses loads of heavy infantry there despite taking a protective stance. A close victory is won indeed, but that's all we need. Beacons of the Desert levelling up handily. So that means the town, we know, is going to have pretty much no garrison in it, so we can just go and take it right away. So the balance bar 100% in our favour. We can go in losing 1% of our army. Someone still died, the enemy refusing to surrender, so we take that settlement back. So we have now restored the territory we've lost in this war, so we're back to the starting point, and the Gallaeci have lost their main military forces, with the exception actually of this navy, which could be a problem. So now our focus is going to be to press north and try and take their territory. We can also upgrade all these units to superior weaponry in this province, which is quite handy. In the end turn sequence, the Gallaeci survivors run off into the forested mountains there. They're probably going to be a pest. And we have Parthiva coming back, offering a peace treaty. I've already made them this offer before. I'll go to peace if they be my clients today. They actually rejected. I know they'll take it if I offer them money, and that will eventually be my plan.
Tell me, what is the value of our clienthood to you? We agree to fund your state in exchange for promises of support. And yet, as these meetings have gone on, we have seen much focus on other matters, and no attention paid to us. I know the representative for Noble Athens can understand my problem here. If the Republic is serious about making the Black Sea a prosperous and peaceful corner of the world, then why does it send only one army? Why do we get an untested commander with orders only to babysit the Bosphorans and sample the women of the steppe? What kind of joke is our clienthood arrangement meant to be? We will not be treated as second-class states for your convenience. Remember that.
Epaphroditos has finished recruiting his army and is now ready to move out. He's got the full 20 units, many of them Eastern mercenaries, not the type of professional army that Massalians would usually field, but as we heard earlier, Epaphroditos is a particularly confident individual and lacks experience, so perhaps he thinks this is enough. He's moving south to chase down the Parthivans, the survivors of the battle at Seleucia. Cretheus can continue north. He's going to head over towards Edessa there. His plan is to just take that place, and then we'll have so much leverage over the Parthivans we can make them our client state without having to move further east to find their final territories. Up near Crimea, Evios now has a chance for some action. Because we're at war with Sakarauka, we can blockade the ports here. It's not going to make much of a difference. We can't siege them out by doing this because they're supplied over land, but we can at least look like we're contributing to the war, and if we do start a land siege, this will make it go a lot faster. Now Artemios is getting really itchy. He needs his men to fight in a battle soon. We need to just get past this city rather than continue to wait for Bosphorus. The only way to do that is to head through the forest to the north. It's going to take a while, as you can see, but we're going to start making that journey and get there soon. You can also see the Spartans still up to no good behind enemy lines. The Iceni come to me with another offer of non-aggression pact. They keep doing this, gradually demanding less and less money. I would have accepted this, but in the post-Eusebius era, there are plenty of forces that make us want to go to war with the Iceni. They reject an offer for non-aggression with no money, and that's just even further fuel for the fire. In Mesopotamia, you can see I'm completing some military upgrades. That means we're going to be able to start recruiting some pretty decent units here soon and use it as a nice base to continue our operations in this part of the world. Cretheus moves forward to besiege Edessa. The force inside is pretty strong actually, the balance bar not very far in our favour. It would be a deadly auto-resolve, so I'm going to siege them out to weaken them, and then we'll probably fight them in the field. Meanwhile, Epaphroditos can move forward. There's a fortified Parthivan position, It falls back as I advance, but they can't move very far because the Egyptian territory is in the way. So we attack. A gigantic advantage is given to us on the balance bar, so we'll go in and wipe them out. This isn't particularly strategically important, of course. This army is unlikely to do anything, but it's giving us further leverage against Parthiva and giving Epaphroditos and his men some experience. So, with that battle won, he's going to start heading back towards Seleucia, just in case the Parthivans come again with any more forces, though I think it's unlikely at this point. So next we're going to zip on over all the way across the world to Iberia, where Eurythenes needs new orders. You can see the Gallaeci navy has run off and is now taking attrition out to sea. So we're free to move, but unfortunately 2 Carthaginian armies have appeared near the Gallaeci capital, which means it's very likely they're going to take it before we arrive. Very unfortunate. It seems that although I thought I would be able to gain an advantage over Carthage in Iberia thanks to this war, it's actually going to go the other way. Carthage is going to take even more of Iberia, leaving us with the minor share. I'm going to start moving Eurythenes north, just on the off chance that we do get an opportunity to somehow reach the settlement in time and take it before Carthage makes a move. But I don't have high hopes considering they have 2 stacks right there, which are unlikely to be there for any other reason. Jumping back over to the east, Artemios is in a little bit of a situation because he's now going to take attrition if he continues to move. Now obviously right now I can just fortify, avoid that attrition, and stay where I am as we wait for Bosphorus to make a move, but I decided that actually Artemios, being so restless to move his forces to the position they want to be in, is going to try and march through the forest, not realizing the damage it will do. It doesn't do too much damage in fact, and although he says here he'll be taking attrition over winter, he actually doesn't in the next turn, as we'll find out. So it's only the losses he's taken so far that will be inflicted. So it's not so bad, but still potentially a mistake for no gain. The Gallaeci navy now comes back from its attrition zone to attack our territory, but as you can see, they don't have any hope of actually taking this settlement, so I quickly auto-resolve them away. A decent number of the ships are sunk, and the survivors head back out to sea and continue their quest to get attrition out on the ocean. It seems the Gallaeci are in enormous trouble. The Carthaginians have actually taken their home territory at this point as well, as we see in a moment. And now I get a random offer from one of my many defensive allies that I've just bought for use here in the east that I don't really have any particular relation to. These guys are asking me to go to war with another Arabian faction, and I thought that since we're pretty much crushing Parthiva now, we are going to need another military project in the region, so I'll agree to the deal. We're going to head south into Arabia and try and fight that previously pretty unknown faction in order to help our ally. Now 2 pieces of bad news. Iphianassa, our longest serving agent and spy, is dead, and Eusebius has finally died as well. Been expecting this for a while, but it has finally taken place. We've also got some minor news. Cleandros needs money to avoid blackmail, and I bought some extra slaves for use in Africa. That's Migdol. So yes, Eusebius is finally gone, one of our longest serving generals, probably our longest serving general ever. and definitely our most famous, so we'll have to see what effect this has on the political situation for Massalia and the world, the regions he controls. Artemios, having successfully avoided taking attrition somehow at the end of winter there, is now able to continue moving through the forest and can get behind the enemy's lines. So now he has to decide what to do. I could head west to look for Katyaroi forces to fight, but I decided to head east just in case Bosphorus actually did move out, so I could be nearby to come and help, plus be near the Sakarauka in case I need to fight them. Ah, very good, very good. Now we can really get into unravelling his little quilt of supporters. We need to get one of our men to be the lead councillor, make sure the control of the veto is ultimately down to us. Finally, all these plans we've made, the plans of Master Gelon, can be realised. It is finally time we stop treating the barbarians like we owe them something, when clearly the opposite is true. Now we can turn the tables, take what we can from our allies, and if they have nothing, then our allies they certainly shall not be. This is the start of a new era, my friends. The era in which the Republic's greatness is not limited by the soured dreams of an irrelevant old man. Let's not wait. Find the scribe. I shall write to Eutychus. So here is our new enemy, the city of Gerha, and the faction is called Gallaeci. Perhaps it's Gerha, I'm not sure. Either way, Epaphroditos is in a position to start moving against them already, since he's already nearby, having chased the Parthivans. So he is going to start moving up towards the border and have a look at what the enemy have. His army isn't the best, but I'm assuming the enemy armies aren't going to be all that powerful because they only have one province. Back over in Iberia, Carthage has conquered, so there's no point in Eurythenes moving north anymore. An unfortunate shame that Carthage now has an advantage over us in Iberia, but as our very close ally, it's not a huge issue. So Eurythenes doesn't have anything else to do, so he might as well just hunt down the survivors of the Gallaeci here in the mountains and hills. With them wiped out, he is now pretty much free. He doesn't need to be around. The Gallaeci still have their navy, but we know it can't do any damage to us, so he's going to start heading east to a more strategic position where he can wait as a reserve. Moving on, Gallaeci comes to us offering a peace treaty if we pay them a small amount, an insignificant amount, but I'm going to turn that down because of course we haven't even started the war, we've got stuff to do. But immediately they actually make an attack against Epaphroditos. They've got 2 stacks available. The first stack is nothing too impressive, bunch of levied troops and some cavalry. The second stack is more powerful, a similar composition but with loads of experience, increasing their stats. So Epaphroditos has a massive disadvantage, but luckily he is able to fall back across the river, and the enemy must have been at the extent of their movement because they don't chase, so we're going to have a chance to try and maneuver out of that situation and gain an advantage. The guys we're at war on behalf of then come to me asking for a military alliance if I pay them. They didn't want to do it for free, and I decided that since I do have pretty much unlimited funds, I would give them that money since they might put that money to good use as my ally. And now, before we can go back to that battlefront, Parthiva here at Edessa are making a sally attack against Cretheus. The auto-resolve options are terrible, so we're going to have to fight this one ourselves. It's going to be very easy and very similar to battles we've seen before, so I'll just show you a little bit of footage from this one. I take my usual formation, the enemy just attacks me in a big line, but actually there was something slightly different about this battle compared to similar battles. The enemy, instead of just advancing continually into my line, actually stopped to skirmish. Normally they would attack with their infantry while the skirmishing began, so there'd only be a few volleys of actual proper skirmishing phase, and because of this you can see I haven't even bothered to deploy my archers in front to do the skirmishing, because I thought I'd probably just end up withdrawing them right away. So they're currently at the back, and now since the enemy has stopped the skirmish, I'm going to have to push them out to the front to engage in this skirmish, and while I'm moving, the enemy is getting some free volleys off of me and is starting to inflict casualties on the pikemen. So, sneaky of the enemy. I underestimated their ability to think about what their advantages actually are in this battle. But now my archers are out in front. We don't actually have a skirmish advantage. The enemy, if they focus on my archers, probably would win the skirmish. So it's not exactly the ideal situation. But we're going to skirmish anyway. The enemy has horse archers coming in to help their skirmishing forces. I unleashed my ballista on the horses, hoping to kill them as a priority because they're harder to kill overall. And some of the ballista rocks went through and hit the infantry behind, and that seemed to prompt the enemy to realise the infantry were being attacked and that they would need to advance. They must have been convinced they had a ranged disadvantage, so my archers withdraw after taking losses from the skirmish, and the pikes prepare a phalanx to receive the enemy's charge. Their horse archers are just going to advance and skirmish at closer range rather than charging, unfortunately, but the rest of their infantry are going to charge. Once they get close, we've got the peltasts ready behind the pikes to shower javelins onto them, plus the archers now moving to the back will fire forwards to hit these infantrymen. We can see the enemy being cut down by the jabs as they advance towards the pikes. As usual, the pikes well able to receive them. Once they do get in, the arrows and jabs are probably going to kill most of them. The pikes aren't going to do very much. So the enemy have engaged right along the line, already actually starting to rout there as the battle begins with some of their lesser troops. This was especially true on our left flank, where the enemy was attacking with just armed citizenry. Absolutely no match for Cretheus' professional troops, so they managed to own them without having to actually use our cavalry or anything to rear attack them. You can see the cavalry went behind the enemy's lines, wiped out the archers, and now it's just the enemy's infantry left. Here you can see one unit engaging the pike phalanx. It's being slammed by pikes from the front. Javelins and arrows are raining down upon it, and now a massive cavalry charge hits it from behind. This unit is being annihilated in pretty much every way possible, and it's a similar situation for the rest of their army. A decisive victory comes after just a couple of minutes of battling. So this means Edessa is going to be ours, and our project to subjugate the Parthivans is going exactly as planned. I don't think these Iberians understand that Eusebius and I were on different sides. To them, I am their new protector. Not that I dislike the notion, but I think if anything will bring Master Cretheus back from his fantasy adventure, it will be hearing that his pet general is making himself an executor. To Cretheus, the balance has gone from Eusebius, Gelon and Cretheus to just Cretheus all the way. Perhaps he forgets that not actually being here changes the minds of the people quickly. In reality, there will still be many rulers. Not sure who yet. I think it shall settle on Cretheus and Bendis to take the lion's share. If that strange boy Artemios survives, maybe Eusebius' old pals will do him some favours. As for me, well, what would I do with lands anyway? With the path of an army destroyed, we are now guaranteed to get Edessa at the end of the end-turn sequence. We'll just wait for them to surrender. On the way there, we get an offer from another of the Arabian factions, another Western Arabian one. These guys are at war with the folk to their east, and they want a defensive alliance with us, which will align us against yet more people of Eastern Arabia. But I decided that's probably a good idea, actually, because it would give us a staging post to head further east by sea. So we're going to consider that a viable option. Edessa is captured, as it says here, and will occupy the settlement, bringing us up to 3 of the 4 regions of Mesopotamia. We're going to have quite good control over this province, and the other one is controlled by a Hellenistic faction, the Egyptians, so overall the province should be quite stable. Now, to escape the forces of Gerher, Epaphroditos is going to head back towards our border. We ideally want to try and get these forces to split up so that we can face one army at a time, where we'll have a much easier time, especially considering that Epaphroditos doesn't have the best military forces available to him. Lots of mercenaries who aren't up to the standard of the usual Massalia and hoplite lines. So I'm going to fortify on the border and basically just see what the enemy do, and then we'll decide what our reaction is based on their advance. I'm also going to upgrade the ammunition of these skirmishers, which is a result of capturing Edessa. Quite handy, doesn't actually show it on the unit card, but for the peltasts in particular, an extra javelin will be handy. So for Artemios, the Bosphorans forces still haven't moved out. They're still recruiting new men, and he is not going to wait around behind the enemy's capital for them to show up like he was doing on the other side. Instead, I decided it's time for Artemios to see some action. We're going to advance towards the Sakaraka capital here. We don't want to actually take it because this is part of the Bosphorus core territory, so we want them to take it. But what we could do is attack and sack it. However, the garrison inside is really strong, loads of upgraded units, and absolutely loads of archers, including horse archers. This army is the specific army build that the Daemons of Ptolemais are weak against, being a slow-moving armoured unit without that much skirmishing power in the force. So a very difficult situation. I'm going to try and siege them out rather than make an attack. We'll see if they attack us and if we can counter their archery tactics. Now with Parthiva on the back foot, I'm going to buy them as a client state rather than continuing east to take their final territory. So we're just going to buy their loyalty. I could probably buy it for much less than I offered them, but because I have so much money, I'm forced to offer quite a lot because of how the game works, and we successfully buy them. They absolutely hate us, but that hate may wear off over time. If it doesn't and they rebel against us, then that's going to be their loss. I also noticed Colchis here, another faction on the Black Sea coast we're not trading with, so I thought I might as well get the trade going, and they were willing to be my client state if I traded with them. They're allied to my other client Trapitos and at war with Sakarauka, so they're very diplomatically aligned with me, but they have Eastern culture, meaning they will be fundamentally conflicting with my Hellenistic goals for the Black Sea coast, so we'll have to see how that goes. Another interesting offer from Hayastan, the Armenian Empire. They want non-aggression. They are also quite diplomatically aligned with me. I feared that here in the east they would be my main enemy, but actually they're quite friendly towards our empire, so we'll use that to help us for Cretheus' campaign. The Katioroi come offering peace. This isn't the first time they've done it, and yet again we're going to turn them down because our war aims have not been achieved. However, as I turn them down, you can see right at the top left there, they move some forces about. A small Katioroi army comes to attack Artemios. He turns to engage it, but of course this means that quite powerful Sakarauka force will now attack his whole army from behind with all of those skirmishing units, and even an inexperienced commander like Artemios knows this is not the ideal situation to be fighting in, so he withdraws and the Katioroi don't chase him down. They probably could have engaged in a battle that would have had the Sakarauka reinforce again. The Gallaeci forces fall back into their own territory, interestingly not chasing Epaphroditos, so that's going to give me some more time to prepare a stronger force before we invade again. For Artemios, we now can't really attack the city or the army because they're backing each other up, so what I decided to try and do was move up to the edge of the Crimean Peninsula and take up a fortified position. Unfortunately, the zone of control wasn't big enough. My goal was to trap the Katioroi here on the peninsula and try and force them to attack me to escape, but that wasn't going to happen. You can see the Bosphorus Daemons of Polymus are almost at full strength from their recruiting, so I'm hoping once they are, they will move out. Cretheus is going to move south to join up with Epaphroditos. They might as well team up to move south against Gallaeci, and hopefully with both of them they'll be able to overcome the enemy's large armies. The Sakarauka make an attack against my new client state Colchis, but it looks like they fail, so that is good news. Now we get a repeated offer from the Carnutes. They want me to go toward the Iceni. I've already discussed that we're not really in a position to do so, but it seems there's a surprising amount of pressure for us to do this, and it does seem like a somewhat logical expansion. So I'm not going to agree to join the war right now because Heraclides would be in real trouble. He's surrounded by Iceni forces in his current garrison. But I decided what I would do was prepare men to reinforce him so that we're in a better position. So Eustachius is going to take the heralds of Massalia from Gala up along the coast to go and land over in our garrison there in Britannia, so that we'll have two armies again, and with those two armies we should be able to take the Iceni, or at least cover multiple angles successfully, so a war in Britannia would be more feasible. I'm going to bring my little navy up there back to escort the transport ships as they come. Now, the Katioroi forces escaped from Artemios because he didn't have the zone of control that was big enough, and instead of going up against the Sakarauka's powerful garrison again, what I'm going to do instead is move west. On the way, I noticed the little symbol, meaning that the settlement was a war target, wasn't there, but it's still there on the diplomacy map, so hopefully Bosphorus will still know they need to go and take it. Artemios is going to head west. He's stopped for now by winter. We'll take attrition if we go too much further, so he waits until the next turn. The next turn comes about without event, so he can now move on and attack this Katioroi settlement. So this is not really in support of Bosphorus anymore. We've got bored of waiting for them. We're going to do something for ourselves. Artemios needs to win some glory, and the Daemons need to fight someone. So here we have a relatively unpowerful garrison army, powerful enough that we'll have to manually conduct the assault, but there's a decent chance of winning, and this is going to give Massalia a nice colony on the Black Sea coast to help oversee its development. We'll see the assault in the next episode. With the Daemons a world away, the death of Eusebius could do nothing but create a vacuum into which many waiting politicians slid. The return to relevance for Bendis, afforded by his questionable inheritance of Gelon's command, was now enhanced. He was suddenly the most powerful man within any reasonable distance of the city. The triumvirate had dissolved and left many of the Massalian territories unable to put a face to the elusive Timucoi who claimed to be their rulers. In both Africa and Cisalpina in particular, a build-up of revivalist settlement bolstered figures wishing to restore the historic tribes and kingdoms that still thrived in the memory and stories of the people.